Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Um, I'm looking through um, NPM check updates because I know there's a way um, to only check. Um, so instead of looking for the latest version, there's a way to check only the matches within a certain Semver version. Um, oh, here it is, target. So we can look at like patch or Semver or things like that. So if we do where am I? NCU, and we can do format group, and then we can do target. I'm not even sure what Semver does if we do target Semver. Hey, good morning, Yo Henderson. So we match the Semver version. Great. So let's do a patch. So what patch is going to do is sometimes, like for example, Angular a lot of times will pin you to a certain version, and we can see that here. That right now we can't go to version 6 of we can't go to version 6 of TypeScript. But there could be a patch version of TypeScript, even though TypeScript 6 is out, could be out, right? TypeScript 6 isn't out right now, but there could be a patch version that's being hidden by the bigger version that we don't take. Um, and the main reason I'm doing that, and we can even take a look at like, we can even take a look at minor. The main reason that I'm taking a look at this is maybe there's a version of um, of um, oh, I'm drawing a blank right now. I don't know why of Express. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on Express. You guys can see I tried upgrading Express to version 5 and it made a mess. I usually don't touch like major versions. This morning I just wanted to see what would happen. Um, it didn't go well, as you guys can see, and something entertaining is like nice save, right? Well, yeah, I made a mess. um, Luckily, I've got enough experience making messes that I'm okay at cleaning them up. And um, this is part of the reason why I like to make messes like this on stream, because one, we can always clean them up by going back. I always make sure that I commit, and we can always undo what I did. But the other thing is, it's good to show that hey, you can make mistakes and you can clean them up, um, and things will be okay. And I highly recommend, learn to maintain your package dependencies yourself. Um, make sure you keep your package dependencies up to date. I typically do it about once a week, on my personal stuff. And when you're, take the time to learn this stuff, and then if you're feeling comfortable enough, you might even volunteer to maintain the package dependencies on the stuff you do, maybe for work or things like that. Um, by taking this stuff on yourself, you're one helping your team stay closer to evergreen. You're two learning how to fix these things and getting paid to do it. But three, you get better control over what package versions your teams are on, and you learn to start making decisions and things like that. And that leads into better chances for leadership, better chances to show that hey, you're willing to take responsibility and handle things. And that always works out well, I won't say it always works out. It works out in your favor a good majority of the time, almost all the time, right? Um, so um, let's see. Let's go ahead and commit from here. Um, and then I want to. Hey, Ole, welcome to the stream, man. The future of signals. Thank you for posting that, Ole. Yeah, Michael is he's going to be speaking on the future of signals. And Michael's a good friend of the stream. He shows up here quite a bit. Um, almost regularly, right? Well, no, I won't even say almost regular. Michael is a regular. Um, one of the big friends of the channel. He said he's anticipating nerd sniping from the Jason. We have to live up. And 5 p.m. UTC. Man, next week is full of meetings for me. I'm probably going to have him up on another monitor and hopefully snurp. That's my brain putting nerd sniping together into one word. Hopefully be able to nerd snipe him and hit him with a couple of puns as he's speaking. But definitely worth checking it out. Michael, he recently became he recently joined. He was recently listed as a member, I want to say, of the Angular Architects the Angular Architects repo. I think he was. I need to go back and look at my messages. Hey, nobody's talking about you. You should go away, brother. NGRX Toolkit, that's the one. That's the one. He recently became a member of the NGRX Toolkit. Good to have you here. We were just letting everybody know that you're speaking on the 27th. At 5 p.m. UTC, Michael will be speaking on the future of signals. Definitely should go check it out. Definitely should make some puns. Definitely should do a little bit of nerd sniping, see if we can pull him off topic. I doubt it. He's probably pretty scripted for a presentation. I'm excited for you, man. When I saw that on LinkedIn and Twitter, I was super excited for you. Very, very cool. And you know, if anybody is interested in speaking and stuff, Michael has gone about it in a good way. And you know, if you're interested in being a speaker somewhere, definitely feel free to reach out and you know, ask questions. It's more of a oh yeah, it is a podcast, isn't it? I'm gonna be on a podcast here soon too. They're recording it September 25th. Let me make sure I'm giving good information. I'm really good at making things up, so let me make sure I'm giving good information before I get too far into this. Let's see. Let's go to September 25th. Yep. So yeah, on the 25th, we're recording a podcast with the Angular Plus show. So I'm looking forward to that. It looks like Jay will be there, Brooke Avery, and Brian Love. So that should be a fun crew to talk to. Very much looking forward to that one. So yeah, I love the Angular Plus show. They're a good group of people. So you're noon in Chicago. It winds up being about 10 o'clock um, here Mountain Time. Um, so let me just validate on my calendar. I think I blocked some time out for it. Um, oh yeah, I have to look here. I did block some time out for it. It manages to be right in between two meetings. So I blocked some time out for it so that I can make sure be there. Um, yeah, um, definitely recommend you guys go check this out. Michael's been doing a lot in the signals area, um, and very, very. I'm looking forward to what he's got to say. He's very insightful in this area. Um, that being said, let's dig into something stupid that I did last week. Um, so after the streams, I've been merging stuff in, right? And the Gemini Code Assist has been really, really helpful. Um, I I enjoy code reviews, and Gemini has been really good, right? We added our warp file, great, blah 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 blah. Then the code review, it said, hey, you changed key up to input, which worked out in our favor. Then it says, the hero store where the code does not match the company comments intention. So our comment is add test to check for the hero ID equals 0. This should be allowed. And then I went and I wrote this stupid piece of code. We want anything less than 0 to be allowed, but we're saying, hey, if the hero name is undefined or the hero name is less than, great, but equal to also, uh-oh. And the code review rightly called it out. So we're going to fix this. Oh, and this is why I really do enjoy code reviews, and I'm a big fan of what Gemini Code Assist is doing here. I actually haven't started WebStorm. Another piece of housekeeping. Next week, on the weekend, I have a brother who lives in Italy right now, and due to some family stuff with his mother-in-law, um, they're going to be where I live next week, which is basically bringing my entire family together. Um, so it will be the first time that all of my brothers and sisters and everybody will been together in one place in a very, very long time. I couldn't even tell you how long it's been. Um, this is weird. That's Gemini just deciding, hey, do I need to do anything with Gemini here? Nope. That's just the agent. That's fine. Endpoints. Oh, that's cool. Can you go away, please? Um, anyway, it'll be the first time that all of my family's been together in, man, what was the last time? Like 2022, 2021. Um, so we're gonna spend some time with my family. Um, yeah, it is quite the get together. So I'm the oldest of six. Um, I have three brothers and two sisters. And so all of my all of my brothers and sisters, my parents, my nieces and nephews will all be together. Um, and we're getting together to support my brother and sister-in-law. But we're also getting together just because it's been a long time. It'll be nice to be together. That's a long-winded way of me saying next Sunday it's I'm just not gonna stream. I was gonna say it's unlikely. I don't even want to pretend like that might happen. Um, next Sunday, I'm not going to be streaming, um, and yeah, I just won't be streaming. Um, so um, that's interesting. This is very interesting. This view here at the top. Anyway, let's let's get this fixed. So in the hero store, and once again, I do want to call out that this absolutely would have been caught by unit testing. Well, I won't say absolutely. This should have been caught by unit testing. So this is me once again being lazy on my unit testing and getting caught once again. So this is 2 weeks in a row where I've made stupid mistakes because I haven't written unit tests. We'll write some unit tests here soon, but this is a good reason why unit tests are helpful, because it's very easy to make these mistakes, especially one of the things one of the things that you need to be like, your focus has to be all the way there on your code. When you're streaming, quite often your focus is split between, hey, what's going on in chat, hey, what's going on screen, hey, how can I make this entertaining, and also, hey, how can I write some code, right? So this mistake was silly, but luckily it was caught by the code review. But also it's a good teaching tool on, if you're on the fence about unit tests, or you're negative about unit tests. I don't know a lot of people who are, but every once in a while I do get approached by people who are like, hey, I don't like writing unit tests. Why do you think unit tests are good, right? This is a good example. I made a stupid mistake that could have easily been caught by a unit test. We're not perfect in our coding. So there we go. That's taken out. There are a lot of people who don't like ligatures in their code. I tend to like them, but I understand the people who don't, because it can be difficult to understand, um, you know, what does this mean, right? Um, Without ligatures, this would be not that. It would be this, right? But without the space in it, less than or equal to. But with ligatures, it turns into that. So I definitely understand why people don't like it. For me, it's a personal thing, but I am beginning to realize, hey, like the double equals or the triple equals might not make sense to people. So I guess, there's one good piece of engagement, right? Like, how do you guys feel about ligatures? I personally like them, but I also understand why people don't. So here we can say that we fixed bug based on ER feedback. Push that. So there we go. We've upgraded everything. Um, and now we're in a spot where, outside of being sniped, and you guys have been pretty good about not sniping me today, which is good. Um, can actually take a look at what we want to do next. They're right. Ligatures are all right. Yeah, I actually like them. I don't know why. It's easier for me to read, but for some people it gets in the way and it's harder for them to understand. Um, so I get that. Anyway, we may actually write some code today. Um, I don't have to harp on AI today, although I just sniped myself. I was just reading an article this morning um, that was talking about AI usage in AI usages in businesses, and 95% of businesses self-report that they've yet to roll out a profitable AI model at their business, which is a crazy statistic to think about. Hey, there's the other Michael. Welcome to the stream, man. Good to see you. But that was a crazy statistic to think about. That 95% of people, or 95% of self-reported businesses, are saying that they have yet to roll out something profitable with AI. And when they were talking about profitable, um, a good portion of those businesses that are rolling out AI to developers have yet to see the 30 to 40% increase in developer productivity that most are saying. Um, a lot of them are saying that their models are underperforming. Um, and it was a very fascinating read. So there we go. Interesting to look at just AI through that lens of, when you look at the big AI models, not a single one of them is profitable, and most of them exist solely because of venture capital money. Um, then you turn around and you look at businesses themselves that are trying to roll out these big, expensive AI rollouts, and none of them have been profitable yet. It'll be interesting to see what happens once that venture capital money dries up and things start to cost more and people have to start turning profits. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm very curious where AI winds up. This is our own Michael. Does he really look like Michael, but just with a mustache? If we say his name backwards, does he go away? Um, Actually, we don't say his name backwards. I like Michael. He doesn't need to go away. Um, anyway, yeah, it was a fascinating read this morning as I was preparing to stream. And I've been reading a lot of AI content because um, the discussion on the 25th is very AI related. And so I want to be able to go into that discussion, not just spouting things off the top of my head, but being prepared to talk about AI and things like that. So we created the message service. We added the message service to the heroes component. Our final code review. And then it goes through all the stuff that we did to get to this point. So now we're going to get into the router stuff. This will be interesting because Angular. Let me see if I can find that tweet from Minko today. Where is notifications? Miko mentioned, and even today, I was gonna go. Well, we could do it this way, right? Um, Not on a browser that you guys can't see. That's not gonna help anybody. Let's go to this browser, and let's go to angular.dev, and from here, we can go to where are the blogs? The Angular blog. Discord, GitHub. There we go, blog. Did I already have it up here? No. We don't have a blog on 20.2. Oh no. Then I guess what we can do is we can go take a look at the release notes. Oh, you got one? Yeah, if you've got one, go ahead and share it, Michael, and I'll put it in there. But oh, sounds like that just came through on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Let's share this one. So let's go here. And here are the release notes. Oh, and you even posted them. This is you. So zoneless stable hit, and that's really cool. We've been zoneless in this since the beginning, so that's not going to do much. Animations package going away. We aren't really using the animations. So this is the one that I wanted to talk about. So we've got signal and routing. There's a current navigation signal. They took out the get current navigation function, and now we have a current navigation signal. So as we work through the routing, I want to put the current navigation up on the screen. Be very, very easy to do because now we've got a signal. Yeah, and then just some other stuff, right? You can, and this I don't do this as often, but a lot of people will do like if some value as some other value, often in place of a let block or a let declaration. But now you can use the same else if some value as some value is now works, which is really cool. TypeScript 5.9, which we upgraded to before the stream. I don't use forms, so so HTTP client and service workers, yeah. So lots of good changes there. Thank you for compiling that, Michael. But that's the biggest one that we're going to take a look at today is the signal on the router. I haven't seen that PR yet, Michael. But I definitely we're becoming more reactive in the Angular world. We have been fairly reactive. Like Angular by default is quite a bit more reactive than a lot of the other frameworks out there. And the reason for that is that Angular started out in RxJS, which gave us a lot of reactive tools. we could react to signal, well, not signal, observables. We could react to observables and observable streams, and we could compose observable streams and things like that. Signals gives us a more, it gives us, you know, a native reactive primitive that we can work with that works really, really well in the templates, right? One of the biggest issues we had with observables was the closer you got to the user and the closer you got to the templates, um, the more that component of time-based stuff became an issue. Um, and that's the biggest issue between, or the biggest difference that I point to between signals and observables. Signals don't really have a time component with them. And you can see this if you make a whole bunch of signal changes within the same update cycle, you will only get the latest change to that signal. With observables, you get that time-based component where you can make like 50 updates within the same observable signal, within the same change detection. And you're going to get those 50 things coming through. That's why we have things like switch map, concat map, and things like that, where, you know, if you're switching to another signal, you probably want to cancel that. That's why switch map exists. Maybe you don't. That's why cat map or merge map exist, right? So your the time-based notion really becomes difficult when you're working with templates. And so the two complement each other very, very well. But we still have that issue of moving from something that's time-based, right, our observables, into something that's not time-based, or signals. And that's why we've got, you know, from observable and from signal, that allows us to move back and forth. And they handle subscriptions and things like that better for us. And then, you know, you throw in things like signal store and RX methods or signal methods or things like that. And suddenly our reactivity toolkit just really became powerful. So yeah, that was, I lost my train of thought there. That's hilarious. Anyway, my train of thought was the new signal gives us some better ways to handle navigation in our templates and things like that. Oh, really? NGRX Toolkit just added with resource. Very cool. We need to get into resources some more. And I have some ideas for things we can do with resources. And in fact, a hero resource is a good thing to take a look at. I understand what we did wrong with the grid resource in our Sudoku game when we tried to create a grid resource. And I understand how to fix it, but I also understand maybe we don't want to fix it. But resources are very, very cool. And most of the people who are working with Angular are looking at, you know, with, they're looking at HTTP resources. But there are a whole bunch of other resources we could use. Resources are a way to handle async events that need to return some sort of data. So you could have like a clickstream resource based on button clicks or mouse clicks, or a mouse movement resource, or things like that, that would allow you to interact with, you know, the resource of mouse clicks, right, from the user, or the resource of mouse movement from the user, in a way that allows you to handle the API in such a way that you know, people aren't having to subscribe to those events and understand how to properly clean up those events, understand how to properly, you know, react to those events so that you're not killing page performance, things like that. There's another interesting there's an interesting library out there that takes HTTP calls and transfers them to web workers. And then using those web workers, it does the HTTP calls in the background, which gives you true multi-threaded HTTP calls within your application. Very, very fascinating. There's a way that you can patch the fetch event on a browser, and it patches that fetch event, and then it uses JavaScript proxies around the object to handle some of this, and it uses some other interesting ideas. One of the things that I've been thinking about, and I think it might be fun to do this with like the Star Wars API or the Rick and Morty stuff that we've done in other repos, is what if we created a resource, and that resource was very similar to the HTTP resource, but instead of using a fetch or an HTTP client or something like that, what if we made that resource, when you set it up, you said, hey, let's use 3 web workers. And so that resource would maintain a pool of web workers. And then when you make an HTTP call through that resource then uses web workers behind the scene. And it's all asynchronous communication between the, with post message and all of that, between web workers and your UI, right? So we're really truly moving into a multi-threaded application. So that's another thing that I've been thinking about heavily with resources, where you can enable much better you can enable much better application performance in such a way that the consumers of this don't even realize what's going on. Another thing you could do is use web workers to offload heavy computation, right? So you could have a heavy computation web worker, but you could have a heavy computation resource that you could then allow somebody to add to the application that you're working in. So they could do, hey, heavy computation, and then feed it the computation. That automatically gets moved to a web worker, and your UI doesn't slow down. So I've been thinking about that in the context of things like building Angular front ends for like MCP and for LLMs and things like that, where you could move the work that's done in setting up the LLMs, right, all the context and all of that, to a web worker. Your application stays snappy and responsive, but the heavy work that's done with communicating with the with the LLM and all of that on the back end becomes very easy for people to do, because you just give them an LLM resource. They don't even need to know what LLM you're connected to. So I've been thinking about things like that too. I've got a bunch of ideas. If we get into something that heavy, I'm going to need to start streaming more than on Sundays. So those are in my list of things to look at and to do. But I also, right now, at work, I'm very, very heavily involved in a big initiative, and that big initiative is very mentally and time draining. I spend a lot of time reading through. Well, let me show you one of the papers that I've been reading through. CISA micro segmentation art. Yeah. So if you guys want to read an interesting paper, I've been reading stuff on this level. Microsegmentation and Zero Trust Part 1, Introduction and Planning. And this is a fairly large, um, PDF file. I think it's like 24 pages. Um, and it goes through all sorts of interesting things about zero trust environments, and how to build zero trust environments. Yeah, it talks about, when climbing Mount Everest, you're going to reach base camps, and you're never going to reach perfect, but you can reach optimal, going through here. And then we talk through, well, I say the paper talks through what traditional segmentation looks like. And these circles here are what they're calling PEPs, or policy enforcement points. With microsegmentation, you take this area and you segment it up into smaller areas. We still have the same number of PEPs, but with microsegmentation, what happens is, say I get a bad actor, right? This face represents the bad actor. If I don't microsegment my application, then if this bad actor can compromise my web server, then they've got access to my other web server, my databases, and stuff like that. And this is the fallout from being compromised here versus in microsegmentation, where you've got much smaller area. And this even here, compromising the web server and the database server, is probably bigger than I would want to allow. So doing things like segmenting authenticated from unauthenticated traffic and just stuff like that minimizes the impact of a bad threat, like a bad actor within the organization. And these PEPs are ways to layer security on top of everything you've got, right? So very, very fascinating, but very, very technical. A lot to go through here, talking about, how do you do this, and just all sorts of deep reading stuff to go through. So this is largely what I spend my time doing, which is enjoyable. Yeah, microsegmentation is a dirty job, but someone has to do it. Exactly. It would be a great stream, and I when we talk about stuff like this, I want to help you guys understand how to level up your career and places to look. If you guys are interested, this is the document, and this is from a mandate by the U.S. government on what government contractors have to do, and what people writing for like the Department of Defense have to do. Like the CISA documents are at that level. So if you guys are interested, reading through it is not super simple, but it is a good read. And my suggestion is take that PDF, go to your favorite LLM, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is. Give it that document as context and just start asking questions about the document, right? Like, give me a high level overview of what this document talks about is a good place to start. And then, can you break down the key concept of microsegmentation for me? And start doing that. And then take notes on what the LLM is giving you, and then go into the document and read it, and then, do some Googling and stuff like that, or, talk to your LLM about, the key points that you're trying to learn. Using that method, I was able to get the key points that I needed to know about that document in about an hour. And then once I had the key points and I could write up some documentation and some suggestions around those key points, then I went back and it took me about another 5 hours of just working through that document by myself, um, and just trying to understand how everything fit together. It was about a 6 hour read, for me, but that's because when I'm going through documents like that, I don't like to just trust what the document's telling me. So if a document makes a statement, I want to go back that statement up in multiple other areas. So I do spend time like Googling, and I do spend time looking for people who either back up or counter what the argument that's being made. Um, I I want to think very critically about documents at that level have um, that have that significant of an impact, um, on the software that I'm working on. Um, but very good read. Very worth your time, because especially with the emerging threats that are happening right now, AI makes it very easy um, to help compromise systems. Um, and like the classical hack, that everybody portrays in movies, where you've got somebody on a keyboard hacking away. AI makes those easier, sure, but in the case of a lot of bad actors, they're often layered threats also. So they may try to come at you through, you know um, through the classical hacking, where they're trying to just compromise things, whether it's through buffer overflows or compromising passwords or compromising credentials or things like that, right? So you get those. On top of that, they're going to try to manipulate people within the organization, to be able to gain access that way. Also, they may send out phishing for credentials. They may send, they may go, and put posters up in common areas, of your organization, advertising something that has QR codes um, that lead you to something that looks like the official login, trying to get your credentials that way, right? Stealing credentials, trying to, and so AI is rapidly evolving the way threats happen, and the multi-layered way that threats happen. Um, and so micro segmentation, right? Segmenting the attack area that you expose when something is compromised, becomes a much bigger deal. Getting fish from a QR code in my house. Okay, a lot of you guys are still working from home. I'm 1 week in the office. I'm 1 week at home. But it's not that unheard of. I've gotten to the point where I just don't scan QR codes out in public anymore. You'll see like QR codes that people are putting up, around the place, and bad actors will often go print QR codes that are the same size and color, and put their bad QR codes over the top of existing QR codes. It's just not worth it. Um, yeah, QR codes are a way to do it. You know, Calling is another. Like, there's just so many ways to manipulate people into giving you stuff, that quite often, searching. I'm not going to say that searching for vulnerabilities doesn't exist, because searching for vulnerabilities, is another. If you can find one, it's an easier way to compromise a place. But often it's easier to manipulate somebody within the organization than it is to find a vulnerability, with with software today. Um, so even if you write perfect code that has no vulnerabilities, something like segmenting, what can be attacked if compromised, is a big deal, because even if you're perfect as a developer, that doesn't mean that everybody in your organization is perfect at protecting you against threats. So Hey, speaking of stuff like that, um, thanks for um, thanks for proving a point there. We get a bot out there trying to sell viewers. Um, it, it's it's not that big of an audience that I could ever capture just doing Angular streaming. So these bots don't mean anything to me, but they exploit holes in the holes in the way these things work, right? Um, so definitely, definitely, as we get more and more into vibe coding, and more into AI doing a lot of stuff, one way to separate yourself from the pack is to understand security fundamentals, and understand how do we make this secure? How do we minimize the impact of something going wrong? Because it's no longer an if something goes wrong, it's a when something goes wrong. Um, the arms race, especially with AI evolving the way it is. I was I was watching something the other night about um, people talking about, hey, don't even interact. Like one of my favorite pastimes used to be if somebody called me and it was obviously a scam, just messing around with them for a while. That used to be one of my favorite pastimes. Don't even bother anymore, because what they'll do is they can get information about you based on your phone number and all this other stuff online, right? Um, so what they can do is they can take the recording of that call, feed it into an AI. That AI can now generate your voice. And so then they can take your voice and then call family members, and in your voice using AI be like, "Hey, I'm stuck somewhere. I need money," or "Hey, I'm in jail. Can you bail me out?" Or "Hey, I'm right," like all this other stuff. And those kinds of scams are super effective. Um, so be very very careful about who you talk to on the phone anymore, right? Yeah, exactly, right. Talking to scammers, it used to be a fun pastime, but AI has changed that into a dangerous activity. And it's not the fault of AI. I'm not blaming the tool here. It's not the fault of AI. It's very much the fault of the people who are using tools for bad, right, for bad outcomes. And I don't even think it's worth our time to try to control this kind of stuff, because the controls that you put in place are often worse than than the problem. And the problem can be addressed in a bunch of different ways. But if we try to mangle AIs, the reality is, if I'm already willing to steal money from somebody, it really doesn't matter if I'm using an illegal AI to do it anyway, right? It doesn't, that like the fact that I make something illegal, all that does is it makes it so that we make AIs less useful for the general public. But people with money, they don't care. Um, there's an interesting saying that fines are just a way to keep poor people from doing what rich people want to do. Um, you know, so fines, if you've got money, fines don't matter. Um, if you're if you're already going to do something illegal, you don't care what the tools are. You don't care that, oh no, I can't do my illegal AI stuff anymore because it's illegal for me to have an AI that, no, right? And so I want to be very, very clear. I don't think that we should lobotomize AIs because people can do illegal stuff with them. Um, what we need to do is strengthen the laws so that when we catch people doing things illegally with AIs, it's on them, right? They're the ones that chose to do something illegal with AIs. It's their fault that they did it. They should pay an enhanced, they should pay an enhanced price for whatever they're doing. Very similar to like if you commit crimes with weapons, um, your punishment for doing that is much more enhanced than if you just committed the crime, right? I think it's the same way. You need to hold people responsible for what they do with tools, not make the tools less useful because you think that they're dangerous. Right. Exactly. Johanderson. Um, that's my philosophical take on it. There are other things that I don't want to get into because it becomes very political. Um, and my views have evolved on this quite a bit, um, due to if you guys want to read between the lines, due to some things that have happened in schools in my area. I don't really want to get into the political stuff here, but my views have definitely evolved a bit, um, just because of things that can happen in the US in schools. Um, and I have experienced things like that with my own children. Um, and so my views are definitely a little bit more nuanced than they used to be. Um, but when it comes to AIs, everybody who's out there talking about and this is really top of mind right now because Claude came out and said that they added a filter on top of their AI that makes it so that their AI can't create nuclear weapons, right? Great, but um, one, when you go in and look at what AIs tell you to do when creating nuclear weapons, AIs really haven't been good at creating nuclear weapons, is the first thing. Two, somebody goes out and creates a nuclear weapon, that's on them. That's not on the AI. That's not right. And I don't know. I'll just get off that topic. But the bigger issue is Claude has proven that they can lobotomize their AI. And so what this tells me is, and this is kind of a dystopian way to look at it, but I'm a little bit dystopian right now because I just finished watching Cyberpunk on Netflix, which I really enjoyed. But the whole idea of the cyberpunk universe is, the haves and have-nots are so far apart, right, that it's nearly impossible for the have-nots to get to where the haves are. And once you prove that you can lobotomize information out of your AI, what you've also proven is that people who have the means to create an AI that's not lobotomized, or people who have the means to access an AI that's not lobotomized, are suddenly better off than everybody who can't. And the Cyberpunk 2077 game goes into an interesting side story, I would call it, as you're investigating the cyberpsychosis, and how cyberpsychosis may not be permanent, and there may be ways to help people who suffer from cyberpsychosis. And for people who aren't aware of like the cyberpunk universe, in the cyberpunk universe, people are enhancing themselves with various upgrades, right? Like you can upgrade your eyes, you can upgrade maybe your bones, you can add weapons to your body, you can do all sorts of like these upgrades, and these upgrades all interface directly with your brain. And at some point, your brain can't handle um, all of the extra inputs and all of the extra sensory information and all of this extra stuff. And so once you exceed this capacity, your likelihood to evolve into what they call cyberpsychosis, where you're having trouble determining reality from, um, you know, reality from what's in your head, overwhelms your abilities, and often cyber psychos become violent, hurting others, hurting themselves, things like that. Um, and we're way off on a tangent here, but the universe does a great job of explaining how the people who work for the corporations get better stuff. Their stuff is less likely to cause cyberpsychosis. They get better access to healthcare that helps deal with this. They get better access to all sorts of stuff, right? And the have-nots, they basically are stepped on, and they're treated poorly. And this is my frustration with once you start down the path of segregating information, and that's really what Claude is doing here. Claude's added a filtration layer on top of what their AI outputs. You can't tell me that there aren't people with the means to pay Claude to get that filtration layer removed. And so we've separated information, and then maybe in the future, this is putting together the dots in a very negative way. But a while back, one of the states released everybody's social security number to the public. The way you would get it is you would go to the page and you would view the source of the page, right? That state made it illegal. They said it was hacking if you viewed the source of a page. We extend that one step further. Now it's illegal to view the source of a page. Now we have the ability to filter dangerous stuff out of AIs. Now AIs will no longer tell you how to view the source of a page, right? This is a silly example, but the principle stands that there may be information that's deemed dangerous that a group doesn't want you to get access to. That group then lobbies Congress, or the legal body in your country. Your country then decides that that's dangerous. They then tell the AI providers, hey, you have to filter this information out. And suddenly your ability to get access to something that people who can get around the filters have access to, you're at a disadvantage. And that's the danger that I'm seeing here. Yeah, jailbreaking is harder with AI. Yeah. A Polish game mentioned. CD Projekt Red has had some amazing games. I'm going to tell you right now, the US is losing when it comes to games. I really do not want to play another Battlefield game. China is producing some amazing games, right? They're producing some amazing games. I'm in the middle of playing through, and I'm gonna butcher the name, but Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. What an amazing world! What an amazing soundtrack! What an amazing story! And I don't want to spoil the story for people, but I'm a very big fan of like dark fantasy, dark sci-fi. Like I love The Expanse. I love I love the Witcher universe. I love cyberpunk universe. I love the darker side of psychology and things like that. Man, Expedition 33, Clair Obscur. That game, wow. It just ticks all the boxes for me. And I'm probably maybe a third of the way through it. But just even the whole setup, with the idea of the Gamage. And if you guys don't know, it's not spoiling anything because this is like the first like the first cutscene or whatever of the game. The idea is that everybody lives to be 40 years old since some event happened. There's this character called the Paintress, and the Paintress wakes up every year, and anybody who's 40 years old just disappears. They die. And there's this city called Lumiere, and Lumiere sends out these expeditions to try and go stop the Paintress from killing everybody. And that's the premise of the game. But I mean, that's a French studio putting that together. CD Projekt Red is, you know, a Polish studio. You've got Paradox, which is a Swedish studio, putting out games that are just killing everything that the US is putting out. I mean, there are some gems here and there in the US, and the indie scene in the US is really killing like the AA, AAA, and even the quadruple A gaming market. But in general, the big players in the US are just producing garbage. So anyway, I've sniped myself quite a bit. Let's get back into the coding. But you know, that's my take on AI. AI, there are some things that are dangerous about AI, but I think AI will overcome that. Where I see AI becoming more dangerous is in segregating the haves from the have-nots, and that one really bothers me. It scares me a bit. So I don't know. I'm happy to talk about that more with people too. But let's talk about. So we're going to add a dashboard view. And this dashboard view has a header. It's got our dashboard. It's got a detail view. And it's got a list of heroes. So we're going to need to add in routing. And here it's saying that, you know, we want to generate app routing module. We're not going to do this. We're going to do, well, we've actually got a lot of this stuff in our application already. So if we're just going to close all these tabs. We don't need them open right now. And if we go take a look at our apps, and in our Tour of Hero app, inside of here, when we set this up, so when NX set this up for us, it generated our app routes already. And this is what the Tour of Heroes is talking about. We've got the server app routes, which we're going to take a look at this in the future. That's hilarious. That name, I don't even know where it's getting that name from, because that's interesting. That's a Microsoft thing. But if we look at our app config, our app config, and this is used in our main.ts. So the way it's pulling this in is we're grabbing the app config in our Bootstrap. So, and then our app config is set up here. And you know, we've got the server app config, but we've also got the app config here. So our app config is providing client hydration. And we've got event replay set up. We aren't doing any hydration, but this is something we're going to take a look at as we get our routing in. We've got our zoneless change detection in place, which with 20.2, this is now, you know, this is now part of Angular. It's no longer in developer preview or anything like that. And then we're providing the router, right? This is so much easier than the way it used to be. The way it used to be is you had to create this app routing module. And then in the app routing module, you would set up the routes. which, you know, we can see. And then we would export this routing module, but inside of it, we would also have to have the for root. So we'd have to set up our for root routes, and then we would export the routing module, or the router module. So there was a whole bunch of stuff just to get this module set up. And then inside of, you know, you'd have to worry about for routes. And then there's just a whole bunch of stuff that you had to worry about. We don't have to do that anymore. All of this stuff is now contained within this provide router module, and then we provide the routes, right? If we look at provide router module, the routes that we provide, and then we can also provide router features. And so this is a way, with the router features, we can do things like provide the URL parameters as inputs to our object, or to our components, and things like that. So there's some really cool stuff you can do. Right, you can turn on your debug tracing, you can turn on router configs of certain kinds. And so there's all sorts of very cool stuff that we can do here. And in fact, let's turn on with debug tracing here. Because this will be useful when we want to debug our routes. And we can take a look at what this does for us, but we can also do with component input binding. And what with component input binding does for us is it gives us the ability to basically say input and then name our input the same thing as one of the route parameters. And then that route parameter will be fed into our input, which is a very, very powerful thing. So we'll do this. So we've got this set up. The other thing we need to take a look at is our routes.ts. Right now, our routes.ts doesn't have anything in it. So if we go take a look at the routes.ts that they put together. So right now, the path heroes will route to the heroes component. So we'll do the same thing. So within here, and we've got the path and then the component that it routes to. They're not doing lazy loading at this point. So what we could do is we could say, hey, our path is heroes, and we're gonna lazy load it, right? We're gonna say load component, and is that really what we want? Yep, that is what we want. So we're going to lazy load our hero component. The way it's written right now, and I imagine they're going to get to this. Let me see here. So do the next steps give us the lazy loading? No, they don't. Let's just go back up to the top on this. And here, no, they're not doing lazy loading. I wonder. Interesting. So they don't do lazy loading. But we can do lazy loading, and the benefit to lazy loading is that now our stuff is well, it's going to break up our bundles better, but it's also, because we're routing to the heroes component, um, based on this path, then um, until we go to that hero's route, we won't need to load the hero's component, which is a big benefit here. So we're already to here. We don't even need to worry about router module for root. That just doesn't matter for us. And this whole for root concept, without modules, we don't even need the for root anymore. And it's been so long since I've done for root that I can't remember. Was it for feature? Was that the other one? We can go take a look. So there's for roots, for child. So the way these set up is the for root is set up for any module that needed to do something that was application wide. That was what the for root method was for. The for child was for anything that was dependent based on other things. And so I can't even remember the nuances of for root and for child. It's been so long since I've had to do it that I would have to go and read up on this because it's been so long. So there's a whole bunch of context that I don't even have to remember because Angular simplified it so much recently with the idea of provide router. I don't have to care. And this is a very functional way of putting things together, right? Because we've got the provide router, we give it the app routes that we want, but with debug tracing, this enhances what the router does, and then with component input binding also enhances what provide router does. So provide router sets up the router module, or well, we can still call it a module, even though it's not really a module, right? It sets up the router for us, providing the routes to it that we want. Then we can turn on our debug tracing so that we can see stuff when we're routing to a specific module. And then component input binding is going to give us other powers in the future that we'll use when we get there. So we don't even have to export the router module. We don't care about it. This was a way of saying, instead of requiring people to import the router module in your stuff, you could add to your module other modules that you exported from your module. And so, people could have access to the router module by just importing your app routing module. That was the point of it. So we're going to replace the app heroes with the router outlet. Our router outlet's already there. So let's go do that. So in our app component here, we no longer need this. And we're going to move the router outlet up above our tour of heroes messages. So now we match their router outlet. We're using self-closing tags because I like them a lot. The router outlet just basically tells it where to output stuff. But yeah, and so now if we go ahead and serve this like it says, what we're going to see, there it is. We're going to see that we don't have a hero anymore, or the list of heroes anymore. Okay, did my compile not work? Oh, we can remove the heroes component from here because we don't need it anymore. That cleans that up. Why doesn't it like this? Static imports of lazy loaded libraries are forbidden. Oh. So we've got an issue here where we're using the message component, but we're lazily importing this UI here. Because we're exporting the heroes view here. And because we're doing that, it's leading to some interesting issues that we're up against. So for right now, fine. We're going to we need to go into our route. And here we're just going to make this a component. And this can be the heroes component for right now. And why doesn't it like this? Yeah, we're not lazy loading that library anymore. It probably just needs to catch up. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go and just rebuild everything. Because we're no longer lazy loading anything. We should lazy load some stuff. Here. So there we go. So we've got our app routes. Yeah, we're no longer lazy loading this. So this is the solution to solve that, is to navigate to /heroes. But let's just try here. Let's make this our default path. Fine. Everything routes here right now. So there we go. And here we can see the navigation stuff happening. We take this out and we just make it heroes. Do we have to have a default path? I don't, because it's saying it can't get the slash path. See, we can run this redirect and things will probably work. Yeah, because it's redirecting to the heroes URL up here, but we don't have a slash route for the output. Let's take a look here at provide routes. If necessary, provide routes using the routes injection token. Oh, so this is deprecated using the injection token. I think the problem here I think the issue we've got has to do with SSR. Because we've got SSR turned on. And because SSR is turned on, it can't find the route. I believe that's the issue. So let's take a look at that. So here, we're going to add another component. We're going to add a new directory. We'll just call this one components. And inside of this component, we're going to add a new, we're going to generate a new component. And this component, we're just going to call it the empty component. It will be standalone. Still going to be on push, play block, whatever, it doesn't matter. Export default, inline style, and inline template we've been using. No modules. Style CSS. Did you guys know that CSS now has functions in it? I just learned that recently. So CSS now has functions. It's one more reason that we don't need SCSS anymore. That's one thing that I want to take a look at. is using is using the new CSS functions in our code, and even beyond that, um, taking a look at some of the built-in functions like random. Um, so there's a new CSS function called random that you can use. And actually, let's take a look at that while we wait for this to happen. So can I use CSS functions? Min max filter. Maybe they're calling them custom functions. Let's try that. CSS custom functions. So this is in. So you can declare your functions using the at function and then kind of like the variable notation. And so they're setting up the shadow color here, and then they're using the shadow function to access it. But yeah, this is the CSS specification. What I was wanting to look for, and maybe MDN. Maybe CSS Tricks will show us. And we'll hopefully see it in a couple of years, right? Yeah, they're explaining it here too. But there is like the new random function and some other cool stuff coming. But anyway, I think our issue, if we come back to this, is that did we generate the function? Yeah, we did. Okay. We can close down this, and then our empty component is just going to be an empty template. That's fine with our display block. And this is just our empty component. I'm curious if we do this. And then we come back to our app routes, and instead of redirecting to, we just load our component and we call this our empty component. And really, we can do load components. And here we are going to import. Here we're going to import // component / empty component. And dot then m dot empty component. Boom. And so now we're lazy loading our empty component. And I think if we go back, this should solve our problem. Oh, we're on the heroes route still. Yeah, so This is what we were supposed to see. Did I see the new Angular? I did see the new Angular animation, and it's pretty cool. They removed the animation package and they've added in the new Angular animation stuff. We should definitely do. I need to put together a stream around the new Angular animation because it is very cool, Ole. I agree with you. Well worth checking out. I think the reason that we've got this issue is and here we could even lazy load this one, right? We just do load components. Here we can do import import at toh/ui/heroes view what is my problem here? Where's type declaration? Let's go take a look at my UI library. There's heroes view. Oh, but this is an entire module. I still can't do this. Yeah. What we would need to do, and this is the fix we're going to do here in a bit, but what we need to do is create another barrel file that allows us to do that. So there's our heroes component. So we'll lazy load that here in a bit. The other thing that we can do is we can do an @defer here, and we can defer this message component so that it's not immediately loaded. So we can get some lazy loading there. And so now if we let's clear this out and let's just refresh. So we're getting a bunch of information here. So because we're using HMR, so serving static will be important here because we are using HMR. And so all defer block dependencies will be loaded eagerly. But we can see that we're getting the debug stuff is giving us information, right? Because we're loading the /URL, and then it's recognizing the /URL from this path match, and the after redirects is still that, and then it's doing the child activation because we're lazy loading it. So we can see all of this stuff happening here. And if we go take a look at the network, when we load this, because we're lazy loading a bunch, we'll see a bunch of stuff happening, right? So the initial request is the page itself, right? Then we get some client stuff, some style stuff. We get our main.js. But notice our initial load, the Angular Tour of Heroes. So just this at the top, it comes back very, very quickly. And we can take a look at some of the timings on that. After that comes back, then we get our first chunk. So after we've loaded our main and our environment, we get this chunk. This chunk corresponds to, I'm not even sure. This is So then we get our platform browser stuff in. We get Angular core. We get the router. We get the common. We get our NGRX toolkit. We get our signals, and then the events that we're using. We're getting the interop, which we're using for our RX method. We're getting mutative. We get RxJS, and then we get this chunk. This chunk comes from that's our V chunk. Well, this is more Angular stuff. This is RxJS stuff. TSLib stuff. What is this one? This looks like TypeScript stuff. This chunk is a destroy ref. So this is our deep signal stuff. So this is our signal store stuff. This is our hot module reloading stuff. That's interesting. What is this? So this is our hero detail component. This is our hero list component. This is our heroes view component. So we get these all eagerly. And this is our message component that we loaded by itself. And then that metadata. So this one is our tour of heroes router outlet. So this is the actual component. This is us hydrating the component here. So all of this stuff before is setting things up. And then here, interesting that there's no data here. Anyway, if we navigate to /heroes, then we should see our hero stuff pull in and our messages happen. And these should come back with data in them. They're in a chunk somewhere. We'll leave it at that. But we can see we hydrated 4 components, and we're going to change the way this hydration mess works, so that we'll experiment with hydration also. We can see that everything's working here. So our heroes now works, right? And our component works. We don't have a way to get back to the default where we've got nothing. But really this landing page isn't really doing anything for us. And I believe the reason that I have to have this empty component has more to do with the SSR. Because when the SSR is trying to render it, it's telling us, hey, there's nothing for me to render to this router outlet on the base /route. So that is one thing to be aware of. I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe you need to provide all routes. It's been a while since I've been, It's been a while since I remember the exact thing, but there might be a need to provide all routes in Angular now. I can't remember. I think in the past, if it didn't have a route, it would just return something empty. But I think now you have to provide. I'll need to dig into that. I may just be making stuff up at this point. But anyway, by providing an empty route, we can get the same thing that they're expecting here. But the nice thing about this is our slash route could use what we've provided, and we could use, a splash page or, different things that we could do there. What they want us to do now is add a navigation that has a heroes in it. Let's just take this code and add it and see what we get. And then we may be using some of our stuff that we've already added. But what we want to do is add the router link so that we can, so that heroes is relative to the application. So if we come in here and there's our nav and our router link to heroes. We are pulling in the router modules, so that the router link should work. So now if we go here, yeah. So there we go. So there's our heroes. It's inside of our nav. We can make this nav look nicer if we go take a look at, and close that and close that. We can close the Angular blog. So we're using Angular primitives. And so if we go to the documentation here, and there is a navigation, I believe. I mean, they've got the menu, but I don't really want to do a menu. I mean, I guess nav is a semantic object. So here, could even add this, and we could call it our home. I think it's going to be a dashboard based on what we've got, but for right now, we'll just call it home. Yeah, this isn't nice. So instead, we will do a menu. Do we want to do a menu? Because nav is a semantic. Because down here, we can just, inside of our, oh, we're using a style URL. Why are we using a style URL? There's nothing in it. We're going to delete this file. And then we're going to come into our app component. We're going to just say styles. And then inside of here, we can now say that we want, we can say we want our nav. And within our nav, we want our well, actually, we can just say, hey, our nav is, actually, we don't even need this. Because on our nav, we can add a class equals, and here we can do a flex gap. We'll do a gap of 4, and then a flex flex call, and that should give us spacing between our stuff. We can do more with it in the future. Why is that not working? That is strange. So our nav should have a class on it. Let's go ahead and kill this. And let's try again and see if it picks it up. You accidentally had me muted for 5 minutes and in a different tab, and I thought you were just really locked in. Dude, I am too much of a motor mouth for that to happen. I'm just focused. Oh, there we go. So there's my flex. Nope, there's my flex. I don't want flex column. That was a horrible thing to do. I want flex row. So flex dash row. And I think it's the hot module reloading that's causing the issues here. But there we go. So now it's a little bit better. We could add some stuff here to make it nicer. But now if we go to heroes, we're at heroes. If we go home, we're at home. And now we can see the other important thing here is when we go to heroes, it's initializing our store, but as soon as we navigate away, we're destroying that store. And that's an important piece to realize with our with the way we're doing things, is that we're cleaning up after yeah, no SSR if you're doing or no HMR if you're doing hot module config. Let's do that instead. Let's just do npm or npm. I think if we just do exec, it'll list everything out. No, pnpm exec. Is it? Well, what we can do is we can less package.json, right? Type package.json. Is it just a pnpm exec nx serve static tour of heroes? Yeah. static server is not watching for changes. Why not? They're not an index.csr.html. So they're right that exists in the heroes. And I don't have a 404 either. But it should be an index.csr. Let's go take a look at. So if we take a look at Tour of Heroes, so this is our application builder. We're using the Angular application builder. It is outputting it here. This, I think, is where we can change it to be .csr. So that should theoretically allow our serve static to work. Because we can see that we are building a bunch of lazy chunks. We are building an empty component. I mean, we can get some of this stuff smaller. No, that is the index file. So that is wrong. The serve static is using a file server, using the Tour of Heroes build. It's outputting to the browser. Spa true. What can we add here? I'll need to do some investigation into surf static. But for right now, we're just going to use serve. Because that one's working using Vite, and it is kicking off our SSR stuff too. I'll probably need to figure out how to do. There's a lot of stuff I don't know how to do with SSR, so I'll need to figure that out with NX. But for right now, we're in a good place where stuff is working. And I do like the fact that we can see that the store is initialized and then destroyed. That's helpful to see also. Let's go take a look. Actually, I think we're in a good place to stop. So we've used the router link to navigate to specific places. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this dashboard view. And I think the dashboard view is what we're going to display when we're in, yeah. Oh no, it's saying dashboard. Okay, so we redirect to the dashboard. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create this dashboard view. We're going to use the heroes. We're going to provide a view that gives us the heroes. And then from there, we can navigate to a specific hero. Yeah, so there's that. Navigating to hero details. And yeah, we'll pick this one up next time. Hey, Abrador, it's welcome to the stream, man. Good to have you here. I think you came just at the time when we're ending. But thank you for showing up. So next time we're gonna add the dashboard component. We're gonna add the actual routing, and from there, really it's just getting data from a server. And then we've got our tour of heroes. We've finished the tour of heroes. Once we finish the tour of heroes, I want to go back through, and we need to do some testing. We definitely want to do some stuff with hydration and SSR. And then I want to clean up the UI a bit. The other thing I want to do is I want to introduce, so Zod just released version 5, I believe. Zod.js. What version are we on? 4.11? Is 4 the latest release? I guess it is 4.11. But Zod version 4 introduces a whole bunch of new stuff, improvements and things like that. If we go back to here, so Zod before version 4 was a lot larger. After version 4, it's become a lot smaller, and there was some changes, and maybe that's up here in the they have a documentation site. There we go, docs. So if we look at the migration guide, Zod 3 was it was a lot larger because of some issues, but Zod 4 gives a whole bunch of cool things over Zod 3, where um, we can control. It's much smaller. There's a whole bunch of nice stuff to it. So I definitely want to get into um, adding some Zod. So we may have to add some stuff to our heroes to make. Well, that's interesting. The way that um, they're using some sort of parallax scrolling to get this line to move down the side. I got distracted. Um, Very cool. Um, yeah, Zod 4 is a big change over Zod 3. Um, and there's even this notion of Zod Mini, which is an even smaller version of Zod. Um, so they split it out into core, and I don't know. There was a big change with Zod 4, which is really really cool. I love Zod. Zod works really well with resources. It works really well with a whole bunch of things in Angular, and it integrates very very nicely. So we'll take a look at Zod. We may even bring back like our full stack Dino stuff and migrate from Zod 3 to Zod 4 with our full stack Dinos. We'll take a look at that in the future. But yeah, I'm doing well. Um, just very very busy. Actually, after I get off the stream today, I'm preparing. I'm preparing. We've got an all hands meeting that I'm presenting at tomorrow on some stuff that I've been working on for a while, and I'm not sure how it's going to be received because it, I'm presenting some fairly large changes. Um, so I need to go prepare for that meeting tomorrow so that I'm ready to go. It's at 10:30 Eastern, so like 8:30 my time is when I'll be getting up, and won't have a whole lot of time tomorrow morning to prepare for it. So yeah, you guys, anytime. I enjoy the stream. Looking forward to next. Well, no, next week. I almost said looking forward to next week. There won't be next week. My brother is coming from Italy, and so my whole family will be here. We won't be streaming, but um, I will be back in 2 weeks for sure. Um, so looking forward to that. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and